wanna move to New York, city of dreams. I wonder will I take off if I spread my wings.
Hey, welcome to the podcast series, Musicians of New York. I'm your host, Paul Hennessy, and I'll be interviewing musicians of various genres who call New York home. In episode 1, we'll meet singer-songwriter and multi-instrumentalist Colin McGrath. Colin hails from right here in New York City, but discovered his voice while busking his way through Europe as a teenager.
Walking through the park on the way back home from your place. I know the sweet things you've been saying are written all over my face. Looking at the people passing by, the only thing I can do is wonder how much they would pay to be walking here in my shoes. And they say, where to get a grin like that? And I wanna give me one, I wanna give me one. He must be doing something right to get himself a grin like that. I wanna give me one. Standing in the subway station, just waiting for the train, thinking about how good it feels when you call my name. Floating through the crowd, lost in a reverie. Everybody here in this station wants to be standing next to me. And they say, where to get a grin like that? And I wanna give me one, I wanna give me one. He must be doing something right to get himself a grin like that. I wanna give me one, I wanna give me one. If the great minds of the century got together for a day to figure out what in the world can make a man act this way, will they be scratching their heads looking for another clue about the curious grin creeping over my chin when I think about you? They say, where to get a grin like that? Yeah, I wanna give me one, I wanna give me one. He must be doing something right to get himself a grin like that. I wanna give me one, I wanna give me one.
Welcome to the pilot episode of Musicians of New York, Colin.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Can you start by telling us a little about your formative years as a musician?
I would say I started playing music actually when I was in 4th grade. And the first song that I learned was Beat It by Michael Jackson on the guitar. And I really enjoyed playing the guitar all through, middle school. But I wouldn't say I didn't really, get completely obsessed with it until about high school. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I joined a band. We called ourselves Steel Chicken, and we were a kind of a fusion jazz band in the late '80s, influenced by like Pat Metheny and Chick Corea and Herbie Hancock. Yeah. And that's kind of when I really got into music, and I would come home every day, and I would turn on the little television in my room for a little while, and I'd watch television, and then I would practice my guitar. I feel like teenagers are always looking for new ways to waste time, so I had to have my little television in there. I didn't have an iPhone then. And then I would play guitar for a long time. I'd plug in my little electric guitar and I'd play in my room. And yeah, that's where it started to just get obsessed. And I would go to Tower Records every week, and I would spend my allowance on a cassette tape. and it was the Little Tower Records that used to be at Lincoln Center. And I would, save up all week for this, and I would get a tape and come home and listen to it obsessively. So that's where I really, music started just becoming my lifeblood. And also on the weekends, I would go to Central Park, and there was this guy there who would play guitar near Bethesda Fountain. And it was a really formative experience for me to go and listen to him play guitar and sing his songs. He's still around, actually, a guy named Ned Flathead, and he's a songwriter and guitar player. And I was just really influenced by the way that he told stories and was able to connect so directly with people. And also he had a really kind of percussive way of playing guitar. And he was kind of my first, songwriter hero. Even though I was listening to all this other more sort of heady stuff. But I felt like I couldn't really write songs until I had more to say about the world. That was my feeling through a lot of high school. It's just like, I haven't experienced enough of the world. I don't have anything meaningful to say yet.
So is this when you started having the idea to go to Europe and just play?
Yeah, I mean, I think I had imagined taking a year to travel through a lot of my high school. I was, kind of frustrated in high school. I felt like I didn't really fit in socially that well, and I always felt like there was another world waiting for me outside of my little high school life. So as soon as I graduated from high school, I took a year and I just traveled in Europe, and nice. I met some really interesting people in Scotland, in Prague, in Spain, and I began playing music on the streets with them. Most of the time just doing lead guitar, so that's what I was most comfortable with. But some of those people would be kind enough to let me sing a little bit, and that's where I really started singing, busking on the street.
Do you remember some of the songs you would do, some of your favorites?
Oh my gosh. We did a song from the Blues Brothers, what was the song? She Caught the Katy. That was one of them. I remember this friend of mine, JT Nolan, he had written a song that he would let me sing sometimes, and that was really cool. I didn't play any of my own songs in those early days, though. It's just that was still too early. I was still too much of a babe.
But you were writing at that time.
I was starting to write, but man, those were embarrassing songs.
So what brought you back to the States?
I had to go to college. I had when I went on the trip in the first place, I had made an agreement with my parents and everybody that I'd gotten into college, so I would come back. I deferred my admission for a year, and then I came back and I went to college and really hated it. My first year, I really didn't like it at all, and I transferred. I transferred from Brown University to Oberlin College, and then I went to Oberlin and liked it more. And that's where I really started digging in and writing more songs. And I was also studying classical guitar.
And what year is this?
93, 4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How would you say your sort of your musical direction, like how would it change from your time in Europe, and now you were in college and you were studying music? How did that affect your songwriting and your story that you were telling through music?
Well, it's interesting because I feel like I've always had an appreciation for music's at both ends of this sort of spectrum of simplicity and complexity. And when I was in college, I was exposed to and absorbing a lot of new classical music and appreciating it. And then also just feeling like I could also really appreciate 3 chords and a story, I didn't feel like music needed to be one or the other. I felt like there was a time and a place for both.
Yes.
And, I think a lot of people find themselves more often at one end of that spectrum. They like only complex music or only really simple music that maybe focuses more on a story or a narrative. But I kind of travel all along that spectrum. But then, when I finished college, I came back to New York City, and I knew I wasn't going to be a classical guitar player. I think I kind of always knew that that was not in my cards. I felt like maybe a composer, that rang a little bit more true to me. I didn't really want to study composition in college because it would have been a really long degree. And I just remember I don't really like college enough to be here for that long. So I kind of wanted to get out and into the world and learn like that. So I was actually working in animation right after college because I've always had I've been into visual art too. So I was working in different animation companies in the city, but just always feeling like, no, this is not where I really want to go. And I decided I was living with my parents, and I decided that I needed to get out of New York City and all of the voices that I heard around here growing up, and I needed to let some other part of my creativity grow. So a friend of mine had just moved to San Francisco and had a room in her apartment, for I think $100, $150 a month. So I just moved in there. There were a lot of Irish musicians in that house too, and something about living in that house with all these people, from a totally different background. There was folk music, there was songs, and I liked the way those two things kind of fit together. And I started getting more serious about writing my own songs at that time. I was doing whatever odd jobs I needed to do to support myself, but just, even when I was working at the Botanic Gardens in San Francisco, I just was constantly keeping like a pad in my back pocket and just writing down lyrical ideas, and I recorded an early album out there. I also went to this folk festival, the Kerrville Folk Festival in Texas, and at the time I just heard that this was an amazing festival from some friends of mine, and I got on a bus that took something like 2 days, a Greyhound bus from San Francisco, and I got out there to Texas, and that was a real awakening for me to see all of these different people who had chosen songwriting as their medium of choice. It wasn't just all folk music. I felt like it was like seeing all these different artists who had chosen songwriting as the way that they were going to express themselves. So even though it was most of it was played with guitar and voice, there were all of these different perspectives, some of them really unusual, some like impressionist, some abstract, some representative, like representational. And that really inspired me. And I was like, I think this is the medium that speaks best to me. So I came back to San Francisco and I finished working on that album that I was working on then, and I kept with it. But that was a real turning point for me, Kerrville.
Yeah. So I didn't know about that first album, which is interesting.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I kind of keep it a secret. I guess everybody's got, in their closet something that's like a little bit of a secret, I think there's some good material on it, but a lot of it just feels so raw and young to me that I don't really publicize it that much. If you come to one of my shows, I do sell it out of my little suitcase.
Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, wonderful. So can we talk a little bit about Window Seat, which is what I thought was your first album.
Yes.
The song we listened to at the beginning called Grin Like That, probably my favorite song on that album. There's quite a few wonderful songs on the album, but would you talk a little bit about that first album, and then maybe we'll listen to another track as well?
Yeah. So, after 4 years in San Francisco, I felt like I needed to come back to New York and face my demons, and I also missed my family and I missed my good friends here. So came back to New York, and while juggling different day jobs, I felt like I also had met my current wife, and we had gotten married, and we were going to have a kid soon, and I felt like it's really important that I get this album out now before I have a child, and I just felt like I need to do this, and I felt like there was some urgency to it. So I collaborated with some of my childhood friends. Actually, one of the members of that band, Steel Chicken, was the producer and piano player on that album. And I just felt like I've got to get this out there and done. And my wife had a really great kind of approach to it. She said, just do it. I always call it like the guerrilla approach. Whereas I may tend to, left to my own devices, just fuss over all these little details. Yeah. She was just like, just do it and put it out there, even if it's not perfect. And I feel like that can be a really great creative mindset for people like me, just finish it. Yeah. So I did. And, one of the overriding themes in that album was just trying. Some of the songs come from this perspective of looking outwards, not just always looking inwards. Whereas I felt like my first early album was more like introspective. This one was more like, these are things that I notice all around.
And that's where the title comes from as well, Window Seat.
Yeah, if you look on the cover, it's me sitting on a bus looking out the window. Yeah.
What I would love to do is like play another track of that album. And is there one in particular that you would like to play? And maybe I'll leave your mic on and you can comment.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. I mean, you guys already heard a little bit of Grin Like That, which is, I guess, the single from that album. But another song I really like from that album is Anochece.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So should I tell you a little bit about that?
Yeah, give us a little background on that, and then we'll play the track.
All right. So for our honeymoon, my wife and I went to Ecuador, and it was a really incredible experience. And I remember when we were in the mountains, in the Andes Mountains, we were walking on this very quiet country road, and I talked to this old man, and I said to him, "Buenos dias," which is the greeting that I had heard most people use there. And he looked at me and goes, I'll just say it in English because my Spanish is not that great. But he said, it's not daytime anymore. It's nighttime. And when it's nighttime, you don't say buenos dias anymore. You say buenas noches. And when he said, when it's nighttime, he said, cuando anochece, se dice buenas noches. So there was this word, anochece, when night falls, that I thought was so beautiful. And I thought, wow, we don't have a word like that, just one single word to describe when night falls, when it's dusking.
Yes, right. So busking to dusking.
Yeah. Yes. So the kind of the poetry of that word just really struck me, and then so I just wrote this song about all the simplicity of all the different images that I saw on that walk. And
okay, well, let's take a listen, and I'll leave your mic on as well, and you can interject at different points.
Those are some sounds of birds and insects that I heard in the Amazon rainforest that I recorded. And that's a charango that I bought at a music shop down there, mixed with a piano, a prepared piano.
Open up the gate, work is done today. Sun is going down, put the tools away. Anochece, anochece. Long, long, dusty road, city down below. Give the ball a kick, see how far it goes. Anochece.
favorite note in the whole song's coming up.
Dogs bark in the yard, someone's passing by. Stars shine bright from here, lighting up the sky.
Love those violin harmonics. So, the producer William Berlind and I really were looking for this sound. It's a little bit like a hammered dulcimer, but we didn't have a hammered dulcimer. And instead, we got a little knob that you might put into a drawer or something, and it had all these ridges on it. It was like a plastic ridged knob, and you could turn it. It had sort of a square pole, that came out of it, and you could turn it really quickly. And we found that if you got inside of a piano and turned it on some of the strings of the piano, you could get that sound that you hear in the beginning. And then we actually used that same thing on the electric guitar, where it just feels like, I don't know, for lack of a better word, it just feels like stars right there at the very end over those strings. And I remember when we were recording that last chorus, I didn't really know what the tonic or the root of the song was, partly because I had written it mostly on that charango that I had bought at the music shop, and I didn't really know what the notes of it were. I don't have perfect pitch, so I was just kind of playing around with the shapes and things that I thought sounded good. And at the very end, we just kept finding, wow, you can put a different bass note underneath this same little pattern, and it just puts it into all of these different places. This idea of night falling is first this kind of expansive, almost like gentle thing can become a little bit ominous by changing the bass note underneath it and the harmonic setting of it.
Well, it's an amazing piece. And
Thank you.
So Window Seat was released in 2007, correct?
Is that right?
I think it's 2007.
Yeah, I guess so.
So let's flash forward to 2011. So in 2011, you had a 4-year-old daughter now.
Yes.
And your next album, which I thought was your sophomore effort, which is now I'm finding out your third album, Yellow Brick Man.
Junior album.
Yeah, right. Yellow Brick Man, which I believe is the first album I heard of yours, and then I went back to your earlier stuff. And can you talk a little about that album, maybe your evolution from Window Seat to Yellow Brick Man, and then maybe explain what in the world a Yellow Brick Man even is?
Okay, yeah, let's do that. So I had put out Window Seat, and I felt like it had done a lot of what I wanted it to do, Maybe I'm not a household name, but certainly my name, my music had gotten out there, and I'd met people who I had never imagined meeting before, and it got some nice reviews and things. So I wanted to put out another album, and Yellow Brick Man came out, and I was kind of wondering how I was going to do it, because obviously putting together an album is not cheap. It's not free. It's I wasn't going to do it all at home, but I was prepared to do some of it at home. I wanted to have a plan for how I was going to record it before jumping into it. So I applied for a grant, and I actually got a grant from this organization called the Speranza Foundation, and they have like a little label, the Lincoln City Records, and so I was fortunate enough to get a grant from them to make this album. So I could really get a lot of the players who I really, really wanted on it, which is really exciting. And I still had William Berlin to produce it. He's the same producer as my first album. And I think this album is a little bit darker than Window Seat. When I'm sort of explaining the difference between the two albums to people who want to buy one or the other. It's a little darker. It's a little bit more psychedelic in ways. I think we get a little bit more experimental, maybe taking some of those things from Anochece, those strange textures and combinations of instruments, and going further with that. There's one song that we use, a wah-wah violin, a couple songs actually. I was able to get Charlie Burnham, who was one of my favorite violinists, to come and play some strings on Yellow Brick Man. That was really exciting because he's always been one of my heroes. I love the work that he did on it. And yeah, I think I guess it was 4 years later than the first album, or than Window Seat. Yeah. And I guess I felt like I was at a little bit of a crossroads, trying to decide whether I was going to keep music in my life or not. I had a daughter who was about 4 years old, and just figuring out how I was going to, support a family and continue to do music. I realized, that the whole day job thing gets a little trickier around that stage, juggling how you're going to make it all work. So it ties in kind of with the idea of Yellow Brick Man, so there's a story behind that, and I'll tell you that. So one day I was going into this thrift store, or like a pawn shop actually, on Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn, where I was living at the time, and I was looking for a bass that I could play on this album, and or it was earlier than I had recorded the album, but I was looking for a bass. And, here I was kind of acquiring a new instrument. And as I'm sitting there playing, I see this guy come in with an instrument on his back. And he looks a little down and out. And he goes over to the bulletproof glass, guy who runs the shop. And he slaps down the instrument and he slides it under. And he says, "Yellow Brick Man, what have you got for me today?" And I thought, wow, what does that mean? How does somebody get called Yellow Brick Man? And where is this guy from? What's his story? Obviously when you hear Yellow Brick Man, you kind of think about Yellow Brick Road. You have a pathway to your dreams. And I just kind of thought, well, maybe this guy is cashing in his dreams, and he's saying, I can't do this anymore, what can I get in exchange for it? So I wrote a whole song that was all from his perspective. I just kind of invented the character for him and what might have been going through his mind before he cashed in his dreams. And it was really, kind of relevant to me because I was wondering, am I going to do the same thing? Am I going to cash in my dreams, of making music? Or am I going to stick with this? At the time, I really wasn't sure. I just felt in a lot of ways like I was suffering for my dream, I was feeling like our society is not very kind to musicians, and even people who just follow these sort of impractical dreams, and I think that comes out in different songs, Broken Hearted Stranger and Janie, Where'd You Go? Those are songs about just feeling like you have this dream that you might lose, and feeling kind of punished for the dreams that you have. Yeah. So in a way, it was a little bit of a darker album, and I'm actually really glad I don't feel like that anymore. I realized in some ways I kind of know that I'm ready to record a new album now because I don't feel like I am trying to be, or that I am really that person. I've evolved into somebody else. I don't really feel like I'm punished for music anymore.
Yeah, good point. Well, before we go on to what's on the horizon for you next, let's take a listen to Yellow Brick Man.
all gone, I don't have a dime. I've got no food, I've got no wine. Gonna pack up my guitar, I got this plan. Yeah, I'm gonna take it down the road to the yellow brick man. Yellow brick man, hey, hey, what have you got for me today? Do you have $1? Do you have $5? Do you have $100 to keep me alive? Can you help me out? Cut me a deal. Oh, yellow brick man, do you know how I feel? I'm giving you my sweet baby melody. Yellow brick man, how you gonna give me, yeah? What you gonna give me? A gift from my uncle when I turned 13. And I signed her up good, she's nice and clean. I used to have a band, should have heard us play, yeah, yeah, yeah. Now all I've got are these bills to pay. Yellow brick man, do you understand? I'm down on my luck, done all that I can. Do you have $1? Do you have $5? Do you have $100 to keep me alive? Can you help me out? Cut me a deal. Oh, yellow brick man, do you know how I feel? Giving you my sweet baby melody. Yellow brick man, oh, she gonna give me, yeah. Yeah, what you gonna give me? She got this habit that's hard to feed. She won't be happy till she makes me bleed. Gonna put my baby up on your shelf and let her take a crack at someone else. Ah, yellow brick man, come on. Do you have $1? Do you have $5? Help me out, cut me a deal. Oh, yellow brick man, do you know how I feel? I'm giving you my sweet baby melody. Yellow brick man, wow, yellow brick man, now what you gonna give me? Hey, what you gonna give me?
So that was Yellow Brick Man. Love that song.
Thank you.
So you mentioned maybe being ready to record another album and going in a different direction. What do you
Yeah.
mean by that?
Well, this summer has been pretty enjoyable for me. I'm now a full-time music teacher, and so I have the summers completely off. 8 weeks.
Welcome to the club.
Yes, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Feel very fortunate, and actually. Yeah, and I feel like this summer has been really the first time since I started teaching where I just feel like, all right, I'm going back to my roots and I'm letting myself just be creative again. No grand travel plans, no grand, career change plans, no professional development. So I'm just doing. I've had the whole summer to just be creative. So I did a little tour up to Montreal, which was really enjoyable, and I've also been working on some instrumental songs and instrumental pieces, and I'm recording them. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with these. I've had this idea that I want to make an album of instrumental guitar music, just solo guitar music. I teach guitar at a high school. I don't know how many people can say this in New York City, but I have a full-time job teaching just guitar at a New York City public high school. And I feel like that has made me really happy to come back to the guitar where I started. That's what I was doing when I was the age of the kids that I teach now, and it was kind of the start of this journey. So just writing these pieces, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with them, but I'd love to have an album of them by the end of the year, and I'm working on the third tune right now.
Well, let's take a listen to one. Which one would you like to share with us today?
Let's do Desert Nights.
So, Colin, you mentioned the recent tour. Do you have any local gigs coming up in the near future?
I do. This Saturday, I'm going to be playing with a great percussionist named Justin Hines, and we're performing at a place called Arts on Site, 12 St. Mark's Place, this Saturday, August 18th.
June.
Sorry.
Don't we wish?
Yeah, right. I know. Wishful thinking. August 18th.
Okay.
8 o'clock. You can find out more information about that on my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Colin McGrath Songs.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the following Saturday, I'm going to be at the Peekskill Coffee House.
Okay. It's a good coffee house. Very nice.
Yeah.
So I noticed you brought your guitar along today, and I was hoping maybe you would play something new for us today.
Yeah. I'll tell you a little bit about that song.
Okay.
So this is my most recent new song with words, and I think this came out of this feeling that I get. I don't know. Maybe as New Yorkers, we experience this more than other people, but probably everywhere. You feel this sense that, we live in these apartments where other people have lived in them before us. There will be other people who will be in these apartments after us. And, if you've ever shopped at a thrift store, you may, wonder where those clothes came from, who owned those clothes before you. And, there's just this sense of, we are all passing through. And trying to make some kind of mark, trying to leave something of worth behind. And often while we're in it, it doesn't feel like we're doing enough. And you can only hope that, that in the end, in the final reckoning, that it will be enough.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, so what is the name of the song?
It's called Dead Man's Shoes.
Okay, let's have a listen.
All right.
There's a tree growing through the crack in a pavement on 215. I can see it when I'm waiting on the elevated tracks for the downtown train. And I've been watching that tree getting bigger and bigger ever since the spring. But the summer has been pretty dry, we could use the rain. No, I wish I could help, I don't know how. I'll say my fare thee well as you take your last bow. I'm just passing through, doing all I can do, walking in a dead man's shoes, in a dead man's shoes. There's an old man standing with a cup in his hand by the convenience store. Got a look in his eye like he might have just seen a ghost. And when I'm going to work, he sneers, "Hey man, what are you rushing for? If you don't catch this train, the next one's surely close." No, I wish I could help, I'm not allowed. I say my fare thee well as you take your last bow. I'm just passing through, doing all I can do, walking in a dead man's shoes. I'd love to hear world, but I gotta get real first. Alone to heal, but I gotta get real. I'm just riding these bones till they carry me into the ground, and then someone will come after to take my place. And I don't need no memorial in the center of town. If anyone here remembers my name or face, I hope they say that I helped them as much as time would allow, that I treated them well. took my last bow. I'm just passing through, doing all I can do. Walking in a dead man's shoes. I'm just passing through, doing all I can do. Walking in a dead man's shoes.
Well, there you have it. Episode 1 of the Musicians of New York podcast comes to a close. I would like to thank our inspirational first guest, Colin McGrath, for sharing his musical journey with us. Until next time, keep singing, keep playing, and never stop listening.
Now I know what it means to be alone by myself but free. Yeah, I know who I am. Another dream.